Thanks for tuning in at Brackeys.
Hello everyone and welcome to video number 24 in the How to Make a 2D Platformer course. In this video we are going to be making a main menu for our game. So if we look around you can see a lot of stuff has changed here and my face is also in this now. So I just quickly want to talk a bit about what's going on with this before we get started with the video. So it's almost a new year now, 2016 is coming up, and at some point during the year I plan on going full-time with Brackeys. That also means that I want to start doing some live streams, and therefore I've set up this kind of live streaming setup, which I thought would also be pretty cool to have in the video. So if you don't like this, or if you have something that I want to change about this, please be vocal about it. I mean, if there's something you absolutely hate, well, then it's gone. And that's why I've created a survey, which is in the description, that I suggest you answer some questions in there. And that will help me improve the format of these videos, such as whether or not we should have a face cam while I'm coding. Of course, keep in mind that I can't keep all of you satisfied, maybe, because you don't always know what you want, guys. But I'll try and do my best. So let's jump into today's video. Here, cool. So you can see I've left the project exactly as we did in the last video. And one thing that I noticed, and you guys also pointed it out, was that our lives don't reset whenever we hit the restart button. So if we go ahead and die a few times here, I'll just recreate the bug. So just jump down a few times. They correctly decrement as we die. But when we die the last time there and it says game over and we hit retry, it still says 0. And the reason why is, well, if I remember correctly and we go under our GM objects, I believe we had our lives under the game master here. Let's just double click that. We're probably going to have to open it anyways in Visual Studio here, so we can just boot that up. And I'll just find my player also. Okay, this is frozen. So I don't hope the video will be lagging, but I'm currently running with fewer cores than normally because I've had some computer issues. Okay, so in here, yeah, there, the remaining lives. Well, this is a static variable, and static variables are not reset when we reload a scene. They're carried on from scene to scene. And that means that we have to kind of manually reset this. And we could do that in the restart method or something like that. I mean, we have this respawn player that, of course, we don't want. We have this endgame here where we set the UI and all that. And then through the UI, we call a method to restart the game, which basically loads a new scene. And that means that we could easily just have it, let's say, in the start method here, that we want our remaining lives to be equal to some kind of start amount. And let's just make that a public variable that we then set through here. I think that would work just fine, and that would also allow us to customize it through the inspector. So instead of making it public, we'll just make it a serialized field and then make it a private integer, and then of course a non-static. And we'll just call this, I don't know, lives or max lives equals 3. And then we don't set this here, and instead in the start method here we set remaining lives equals max lives. There we go. So we simply reset it like that, and that will allow us to jump into the inspector, find our game master object. Oops, it's already defined. Okay, so we have it somewhere else. Yeah, it was down here. So let's just take that code and put it down here. So this is one of those videos where I haven't planned exactly everything that we are going to do. At least I haven't done it before. I have a good idea of what I want to do because I want to show you sort of the process of figuring these things out as we go. I don't want to just show you what it looks like to develop a game when you know exactly everything that's going to be happening. That would be kind of boring, actually. So that was my great excuse for not being prepared. Okay, so you can see that now we can set our max lives here, and if we just set those to 3, lives are going to be 3. And when we then jump down a few times, this is not the best way of doing debugging, but it will suffice. So it says 1, and the last time here, our UI is going to pop up, and we hit retry, and now it says 3. Cool, so that will correctly reset. Awesome, so now we can jump on to the actual theme of this tutorial, which is the main menu, of course. So let's take the game over UI, lives counter UI, and drag those 2 scripts under the scripts folder. Let's take the game over and game over fade in animation and animation controller and drag under animation. And that will basically be it. And now we can find our scene here, the main level scene, save it, and then duplicate it by hitting Ctrl D. And let's rename this to menu or main menu. And then double click on that to open it up, and nothing will change, of course, because it's a duplicate, but just make sure that you are now in the main menu scene. And now we can go ahead and delete the things that we don't need. We don't need a GM object. We don't need any UI overlay. We're going to be creating our own in a second. We don't need the player. I just want to have some, maybe the camera in here, but without the 2D follow script. We don't need any of the spawn points, but I would like the vignette in here and all of the camera settings. So we're just going to keep those. In here we also have some platforms. Maybe I would like to keep one of the platforms. We are going to have to kind of figure out how we want our main menu to look. So maybe it would be fun if we had something like an enemy in here as our theme. So let's just disable some of these for now, and we can enable them later if we need them. We have the mountains here and the foreground. I want to disable those, so we just have this blue backdrop to begin with. And A star can of course be deleted. Let's find our sprites here and find our alien spaceship. Drag it in here, and let's scale that up. Hitting Alt and Shift while scaling to scale uniformly and from the center. And we can maybe position it like here. So at position X at 0 and then a bit up on the Y. And that looks pretty fun, I think, here. And then we can have some buttons down here or something. We don't exactly have a name for this game yet, so if you have any cool ideas, definitely leave them in the comments, and I'll think about including it. We could maybe also do a poll for that later, but we'll see. Leave your name suggestions, and if I'm torn, I might create a poll for that. So I think this looks pretty good, and we can just overlay some UI on top of this. So let's have for now, just a play button and a quit button, and then later we can maybe have a settings button if that's something that you want to see. That takes us to a separate scene where we can adjust our settings in game instead of using Unity's pre-launcher of sorts. So that's kind of a handy thing to have, just something like maybe a quality setting. You can dive into all of the different quality stuff and allow the user to change that, but our game is not going to be taxing, so just like one quality setting would suffice. Then a resolution setting, maybe some audio stuff, just the most basic things would be pretty nice to have in here at some point. But for now, let's right click and go UI and then button. And I actually would like to kind of use the same style of button as we did in the last video. So we could just save this and go under the main menu or main level scene, find the UI overlay, and then under the game over screen, simply copy the quit button from there and go back into the main menu scene and paste it into the canvas here. And remember to drag it under there in order for it to be visible. And I actually think that fits the menu very well with the colors and everything. And it definitely really pops. So let's just drag this down and to the left a bit. Yeah, I actually really like that, that design here. So this is going to be the quit button. So we want this to be to the right. Then we also want a play button, but we also need to figure out kind of where we want to anchor these. So I want this to be anchored at the bottom center. So let's just click there, and maybe there will be good. Maybe a bit more to the left, something like that. And let's duplicate that, and let's rename this to the play button. And let's also rename the text to say play. And we'll simply take the play button and then put a negative, a minus in front of the X position. And that looks pretty cool, I think. We could animate this little guy if we wanted to, just having like bounce up and down like a sinus curve or something. We could also maybe play a bit more around with the styling here. So it's maybe just a tad too red right now. I think this might look a bit better. We can also make it darker. Something like that is better, I think. The other red really took over the picture and was kind of unnecessarily distracting. And we can also maybe change this to a 3 and a -3. Yeah, I like that better. It's not as exaggerated. Maybe on the Y we should do a 4. Yeah, I think that's super cool. And why not animate this space guy a little bit too? So whenever you're making a menu, it's a very creative process. So there's really no one solution to this. We could definitely try bringing in our platform here. So let's take platform 2 and find him here. And he needs to be scaled up. I don't really know if I like this platform better than the others. Let me just find the first one. I like the first one better, definitely. So let's just try that one. Scale him up, oops. Like that. And then space apart the buttons, maybe? Maybe, I don't know. Something like that. Well, this really puts my artwork on the spot. Yeah. I think that actually looks kind of nice. It puts a little more into the scene. I definitely want him to be bouncing up and down, so we can just make that now and then think about how we want the buttons to be. So we'll just delete all of these because I don't imagine I want any mountains to be in here. Yeah, no. They're just distracting for the eye. I don't think we need them. We can maybe take these blue mountains here. And what am I doing? And move those down. Just so they're barely visible. That actually might not be too bad. Yeah, I don't know. I actually like it better without. So let's just select all of that and delete it. We can also delete the other platforms. There's no reason for those to be there, unless we want them to be put under the buttons, of course. We have to be careful when we do stuff like that they follow the buttons correctly, but we can just use them as a UI element instead. Nothing restricts us from doing so. But I think this is going to be fine. So let's find our alien here, and I'll just remove the -O there, and let's make a small animation for him, and that's going to be a very easy one. So let's just find the animations, hit create here, and this is going to be the enemy hover animation. Yep. And it's simply going to take his position here and then just wiggle it a bit up and down. So we're going to keyframe him to begin right here. So simply just wiggle this value in order to keyframe it. So that was 6.55. It's going to be our starting point. Then it's going to go up. Not too much. And then down again to the same position here. So he's going to go like this. And then I would like to select all of this, go under curves, right click and choose flat. that will give the sign look there. And it's of course way too fast right now. So let's just space this apart. We could also just change. Let's go into the dope sheet in order to do this. Changing this through the curves are not exactly is not exactly ideal. So maybe 4 times as slow, something like that. See how that looks in game. I actually think that's kind of nice. It gives a pretty fun look to the game. You can see the pixels wiggle a bit here, and that's because we are using, if we find the sprite, we are using the point no filter mode, but that's also very necessary for the pixel art look. So there's not really much we can do about this happening. I mean, if we change this to bilinear, you can see how bad that gets. And I don't think that changing this to true color will affect it at all. In fact, might only make it worse. So there's really not much we can do about this. We'll just have to accept that's how it is. So we just revert that, and it's not extremely noticeable. So I think this looks really cool. Let's just have another look at the buttons here. So we'll make sure that the enemy hover is looping, and that the alien spaceship controller here, animation controller, that it plays as soon as the scene starts, which I think it definitely does. So our alien here now has this controller, and if we hit play, you can see that working. Cool. So our play and quit buttons, I want to configure them a bit here. So let's find the canvas, and I think we should move them a bit apart now. So something like that. That's a pretty good position. Let's take that and do the same over here, except reversed. Let's also maybe play around with the color a bit here. I don't know if I like this very black color on top of the blue one in this scene. We could try something of a magenta color here, and then of course we want to disable the shadow. This might be more fun, I don't know. Can try a whitish color with some black text maybe. Don't know if I will like that. I think we can stick to the black, but we need to kind of make it a darker gray instead of the complete black, because that's just too harsh on the eye. And maybe instead of a red here, we'll make a white. So I think that will kind of tie it better into the scene. We can also try making a no purple. Not in this scene. So let's just make that white. And I think that actually looks a lot better here. Also, if we take both buttons and just move them down a bit, wouldn't hurt. And maybe the last thing that we should do is make the hover animation on these buttons a bit more awesome. And we can do this really easily. I mean, if we go into the button here, it's currently set to color tint. Well, instead we can make an animation, a hover animation for each of these buttons. So let's just try doing this, because we have some time in this tutorial, since it's not very long, or it's not very complicated to do this. So we can have an animation in here, and that can have a... now that I'm looking at this... No. Okay, so this can have some different triggers here, a normal trigger, highlighted, pressed, and disabled. So we can go ahead and make those, or we can simply auto-generate it. So let's just hit auto-generate animation. And this is going to be the play button controller, but I think the play and quit button controllers can be shared, but I'm not completely sure about it. So for now, we'll just make this the menu button controller. There we go. So then all we have to do is inside of our menu button controller, if we select this, you can see that we now have 4 states. We have the normal, highlighted, and pressed and disabled states. And we don't need to do much in these except select one of them. And then you can see that we have the different animations in here. So let's select the normal animation. We need to select this by selecting the play button and then finding it inside of the animation here. So select normal, and the property that we want to configure is inside of the rect transform, and it's the scale property. You can go ahead and change kind of the size here by changing the width and height, but that won't look very fluent because we're going to have some of the same pixel errors as we have up here, except worse, because our canvas is currently set to pixel perfect. It is now, which we want it to be, but when we do that, the pixels might jitter a bit. So our play button here is going to be normal, and then add property rect transform scale there, and we can just move forward a bit inside of here and then change the scale, or this is just going to be 1, of course. Then under highlighted, we're going to add the same property rect transform scale, and this one is going to be something like 1.1. And we can exaggerate this a bit. And you can make the animation kind of like very quickly jump to the larger size and then slowly go inwards. But I would like it to just stay large. So I'm going to change these down here as well. Cool, something like that. And then for the pressed, I want it to go back to the normal state, or maybe even smaller. So we can simply add the same property here, scale, and we can maybe do 0.95. Oops, 0.95. That's a 6. There we go. Copy that over here and there. And simply copy those keyframes down here. And for the disabled, I don't need to configure that right now because we're not going to be disabling these buttons right here. So now that we have that available, we can go ahead and hit play and see if it works. So you can see when I hover over here, it automatically smooths out the transitions because that's how it's configured inside of the controller here. So we really don't only need to create these button states, and we can see how cool that looks. And when we hit play, you can see it makes that really cool, awesome animation that you just love to see in games. So that's perfect. And I actually really like the way that is working. So let's just copy that over to the quit button as well. So you can see here that how we have it set up is we have an animator, and that's the menu button. So we simply need to do the same thing over here. So we have the quit here. We need to change this to animation, and we can then copy from the play button the animator, copy component, and over here we can paste the component as new. And I believe that it will just be working now. So let's try that. And you can see indeed it does. So you will also notice that once we press a button, it stays highlighted until we do something else. And that's because Unity has this idea of navigation. Because when you are using the keyboard to change between keys, like the arrow or buttons, like you use the arrow keys to change between buttons, or you have a joystick where you need to go between the buttons by pressing up and down and to the left and all that, well then you kind of need to tie the buttons together so that each button knows where you need to press in order to get there. However, we don't really need this in our game because it just makes it look weird when we're using the mouse and something stays highlighted. And therefore, what we want to do is we want to disable navigation. So we can select both buttons and go under navigation and select none. And that means that Unity won't do anything to try and create this functionality. It means that you won't be able to use the arrow keys to change buttons, but it also means that when we now hover over them with the mouse and click, they go back to their previous state like they should. So that's basically all you need to do there, and it's much better. Good. So that's kind of the look that I wanted to have for our menu, and basically everything that I can think of that we need to do to it right now. So let's delete the other platforms here. And I think it's safe now to create a script that will handle our main menu. So we can take our menu button, our enemy hover, and our alien spaceship. I kind of want to rename this controller to alien... I don't know. To alien spaceship menu. Yeah, so we don't confuse that if we want to add animation in the game. So all of that goes under animation, and we can now add a script here. So let's just create a new empty game object, and let's rename this to menu master menu manager. We'll do that and reset that. And drag it up here, add a component called menu manager, which is just going to have some very simple public functions. Reload all of this. So we can remove system.collections, and we don't even need to have any UI references. All we need to do is to have a public void, which is going to be start game. And this is simply going to say application.load level. And oh yeah, this is where we now need to use the new scene manager. So we can see how we did that. I think it was inside of the game master. Nope, it wasn't inside of the game master, or was it? Destroy player remaining lives, gm.endgame. So when it ends the game, it says sets our UI active. So let's just find our UI here. So let's go under our main level, find our UI overlay. Here we probably had something over here, a game over UI screen here. That's what I was looking for. So you can see here that it says scene manager.load scene, and the scene it loads is the current active scene, and then it just gets the build index, because that's what load scene uses. And of course, just as we did with the game over UI, we need to use Unity engine. Using Unity engine dot scene management, and now that will work. So that will simply load the next scene if we go like this. So it will take the index of the current scene and simply add one onto there, meaning that it will load the next scene. So that will be just fine. You can also, of course, get a reference to the scene that we need to load. Actually, we should maybe do that. I'm pretty sure that you can just drag in a scene as a variable now. Let's try and do that, actually. I think it's just scene like this. And then we'll do main level scene, or scene to load or something. We can just do scene to load here, and of course make this a serialized field or a public serialized field. And then in here we'll put the scene to load and then dot build index. Does this work? This would be awesome if it worked. So it's obsolete. Yeah, okay, all of that. So let's go back into our main menu and find the canvas here and the the main menu, and nothing is there. Okay, so you might be able to do this, but not this easily, it looks like. What if we made this public? Just wondering if it would work. We could of course cast an object into this, but that would kind of complicate things. It says something here. So it had a warning. No, that's in the restarter. Blah blah blah. Okay, nothing is for this. All right, we'll do it the other way. That would just been really neat. If you have a cool way to do that, definitely show me. Other than casting an object into this stuff, that would be, yeah, dangerous to do. And we'll have a public void quit game, which is simply going to say application.quit. Easy peasy. and we'll debug.log game. We quit the game. Something like that. And there, start the game. Good. So now inside of our UI elements, we can find our quit button. We can add an event onto here, find the button there. On click, we have a reference to our menu manager in a special function called quit game. And under play, again, reference the menu manager, function, menu manager, and then start game. And I believe that's all we need to do, especially if we just go under File, Build Settings, and then add Open Scenes. So that's the main menu. And we also need to drag in the main level. And of course, we need to make sure that main menu is at the top here with a index of 0. So that's the first scene that loads. And now when we hit play, let's just maximize this in all of its glory and hope that it works. We can see this guy hovering up and down, and we have 2 buttons with awesome hover animations. We can hit quit and it says we quit the game, and we can hit play and it loads the new scene. So that's really awesome. If you wanted to have a cool transition from the main menu over to the game, I suggest you check out my tutorial on fading in Unity. We can create this cool idea of fading between scenes by changing the opacity of an image object, and just have one central script that takes care of that. So you can simply just tell it to fade and it will do so. So I definitely suggest you check that out. It's also to be found on the Unity website. So that was basically all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.